How's that? Ah, there we go. Apologies. Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. Take 2. Yeah, not sure why my microphone was muted. That's a bit weird, but hey, there we go. At least we've got internet, which is better than we had last week. So good evening, everybody. I did actually read out everybody, but you couldn't hear me because I was muted. Cheers for that. Don't worry, this is non-alcoholic, so it won't. I can't use it as an excuse for whatever the B26 turns out like. So I have done a little bit today, only today, on the B26, principally because masking invasion stripes and painting them is no fun to watch. So this is where we currently are. I masked invasion stripes. I also did the cowling and, well, the nose and the cowling pieces. Those are the last bits I did because the masking tape's still on, and the little red piece for the decals, because I think decals are more interesting than watching somebody mask a model, paint it, and then mask it again. That's pretty dull. So I think with a little bit of extra color on the model, it's starting to come alive a little bit more. So these invasion stripes, I'm quite pleased with the color on them, and I'll get the cameras and all that bit sorted in a minute. They're quite muted on this particular one, so it's actually an off-white on the for the white, actually literally ICM off-white, which is a really nice color. I really like the off-white. It's very subtle. And then I actually, rather than use rubber black, which was what the other one was, I actually been doing some experiments with mixing thinners. So I already had some Tamiya Tamiya black already mixed. So I just added some of the off-white to that just to lighten it up, so it was more of a very dark grey color, which has got us to where we are now. So just take the masking tape off there. So we've got the olive drab pieces on the cowlings, the non-reflecting parts. So let's get some lights on here. Light out for a moment, and let's get the camera pointing down at the desk, and then you can see a little bit more of what I can see. I won't actually put on the other camera just yet, because I don't think there's any detail pieces to show right now. So that's where we are at the moment. So I think the main thing to do, the first thing to do, is going to be decals or decals, depending on your pronunciation. Both are completely valid, as I've mentioned before, depending on where you come from. Now, thankfully, there aren't too many decals on this. So this is K9R. Got something on the decals there. Oops. Not sure what that is. This is K9R Coral Princess 3, which doesn't really, I never really think it instills much confidence when you have like number 3 of a particular thing. Bear with me, I'm just going to switch off the name here. You know who I am. You don't need that. It was for last night on the midweek model meet. So I did think about doing the yellow and doing the big hairy birds But this yellow is not one that I have in Outlaw. And I could do it with a mixture of Outlaw and then over painting it. I've got some, I've done it actually for the Lotus 49 that I'm just finishing. But that was a bit of a pain, so I didn't do that. So we have these big white triangles to go on the vertical stabilizer. We have the Coral Princess 3, all of her bombing missions and the actual name there. We have the K9R to go on. The side markings. We only have one of these on each like top and bottom. And then obviously the delineators for do not walk and stuff, and then some other little stencils and bits. But that is pretty much it. So it shouldn't be too onerous, I don't think. So I think I'm going to start at the front with the nose art. And I did actually remember to get a pair of scissors this time, which makes things a lot easier. However, I've just realised I've forgotten to get any water, which is going to make this problematic. So I will have to... I'm not going to do it in beer. 0 alcohol or not. Adrian, greetings from Trinidad. Wow, I don't think we've had anybody in from Trinidad in the live stream before, but greetings and welcome. So how to do invasion stripes? I mean, it's very simple, Steve. It's just masking tape. It's you mask off. So what I did is I masked off the entire area. So just basically I had masking tape here, just on all the bits that you might get overspray on. I didn't mask the whole wing, just I kind of did 2 lengths here, 2 lengths here, put it along the side here, underneath, especially where you got the cowling. Sprayed that in the light, very light grey. And then it's just a measure of, you know, what is your width here? This was 45 millimeters, which is 9 millimeters. So I just basically used 10 millimeter Tamiya tape, just overlapped it a little on each side to mask off these, and then just used the 10 in the middle. Did that on all of those, sprayed over. The central ones are actually larger. So these are actually 15 millimeters, which is conveniently 1.5 Tamiya strips wide. So it's a very simple process. It's just rather boring, you know. All right. So with that, I'm going to get some water, and then we can crack on with these decals. Bear with me 1 minute. There we go. Pint glass isn't the ideal water receptacle for decals, but I'm actually not going to put them in there. I'm just going to dip them, so should be good. So let's give those a good soaking. So as I mentioned before, I usually just, so you can see this. Let me just turn it forward a little bit more. Yeah, so I usually just give them a good soaking and then just leave them on the side. There's enough water there to actually activate the decals. It's not like you need them to be popping off as soon as you do them. We'll turn this around and we'll pre-pledge the area. Put some glasses on. Oh my god, those are filthy. Can't see through those. Yes, contrast paints and speed paints, and also diluted inks. You can actually make your own speed paints. Are quite handy things. So it's one of those things that, again, the wargaming community is very aware of, and one of those things that we, as a sort of modeling community, don't tend to really use a lot, but they do have their place. They also spray really well to use as a filter. So we have Coral Princess, we have the name Coral Princess at the front here, and we also have all the bomb markings just underneath the window. So we'll just do those panels just to give us that pre sort of wetted area. Oh, those are coming off very easily. So it's difficult to show you guys this and for me to actually do it. I'm afraid. I must say, though, the decals are very faithfully reproduced the artwork, because I was looking earlier and actually found a one of the art line drawings of this, and it is pretty spot on. There she is. And the Coral Princess 3 lettering goes right next to that. Ooh, I've almost tipped that over. Folded it over on itself. That wouldn't have been good. So just that light a little bit, so hopefully you can see that a little bit better. I might actually put this the BenQ on, give you that close-up view. If I can move everything across without creating a complete disaster, of course. Which is not a sure thing by any stretch of the imagination. And then the bomb markings are like right below this window. So generally what I try to do with decals like this is just move them so they are just coming off the paper, like here. just so they've got a little bit that can catch on the model, if you like. And then just sort of support it with a bit of water. And kind of anchor it. So you can just pull the paper away. Because obviously the paper is much more sturdy than the decal. So manipulating the paper is preferable to trying to manipulate the decal. If you are going to move the decal, you need to make sure there's plenty of water around to kind of go under it, to give you, something to essentially float the decal into place. So hopefully you just about see that there. All in place. Coral Princess 3. Yes, I'm using the very very useful little coffee lid to actually have my pledge on, which I'm then just going to give it a coat over. The thing is with pledge or future or crystal clear as it used to be, one of the great things about it is that it can't remember what the word is, but basically it dissolves itself. And the reason that was useful in a floor polish is that it wouldn't build up, allegedly. I mean, of course it did, but that's the kind of hype around it. The thing with decals is if you put it underneath and overneath, it sort of encases it and sort of sticks it to the model, so it makes it nice and robust. So I would say if you want to paint a 30mm miniature, or if you want to paint a miniature of any sort, I would definitely go for it, because it does teach you a whole bunch of stuff that you probably didn't know or weren't aware of, and maybe you might like it. And as Davros says, there are loads of great videos out there. So I think I've mentioned the creators that I watch on this sort of thing. Ninjon is a really good one. He's got a whole bunch of videos which talk about all sorts of different techniques, from basic through to advanced. People like Marco for Sony, I would say, are a bit more advanced. There's Miniac, Squidmar, and a whole bunch of others. If you want to actually attempt miniature painting, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Right, let's put some big US markings on. We like big US markings. Good evening, Adrian. Do I need 38 at all? I don't think I need the 38s. No, I don't. So I should avoid those. $34 and $38. Why is it? Oh, right. I think it's because the US markings actually have like a surrounding of aluminium. So you don't have to mask all of that with the I can't think of the word. The invasion stripes, which would be a pain in the ass. I'll admit that. So let's put 34s down first, because otherwise that could be a bit awkward. So let's get those dunked in some water. And we might as well wet the national markings as well. I'm just going to put those over there, they're out of the way. So I'm going to cut this little ICM piece off because I don't want that floating around getting in the way. So one of the things you may or may not know is that in Wincanton there used to be a Discworld shop. Unfortunately, it's now closed. But apparently people used to come from far and wide to Wincanton, just down the road from the shop, to the Terry Pratchett Discworld shop. Not sure why it closed. It's still got a load of stuff in the windows, so it's not like it's completely closed and all the stuff's been shipped out. There's still well, there's still the sign up. There's still all of the things in the windows. So not quite sure what is going on there. Right. See how these are going. Oh, those are very, very eager. Again, get a bit of pre-pledging. Appreciate this is going to be a bit more difficult to see because I'm not sure I can get it on camera. Just purely because of the size of the wings here. But it looks like it's kind of goes just onto the black in the middle of these two panel lines. I think I've mentioned before, ICM decals don't often or aren't particularly easy to move once they're down unless you've got water underneath them. And I'm not exactly sure why. They're nice and thin. I quite like the decals, but they don't like to move when they're down. Okay, looks about right, I would say. And let's get the main putting a decal on a decal. The decals want to stick to each other. Rather than necessarily stay where you want them to. But that's okay. That's kind of where I need it to be. So when I've got something like this, like a big decal, and I've pre-pledged and then pledged over the top, I try to pledge everything that I've touched so that it gives it at least an even look to it all, rather than it being kind of random, if you like. Okay. There we go. One great big US star. Look at that. There we go. So that silver decal just kind of poking there, just to give that little bit of aluminium around it. It's quite nice. I've gone a little bit too far with the actual marking, but it doesn't want to move off the one underneath it. And I think rather than try and faff with it, that's good enough. So I need to do the same thing on the underneath. So just make sure I don't kind of touch any of the bits that I've already done. It's just water because I want this to be able to be moved around a little bit. Again, similar sort of thing. Not quite enough water on that. The thing I don't like about decals in general is the way these little numbers just disintegrate and then they stick to everything. So it's always worth getting those out of the way. So that's basically like that. Up a little bit. It's quite good actually because it sort of allows you to preset where the main insignia is going to go, which is quite handy. Kind of like that. Just a little bit shy of. I think I'll move this up a little bit so you can actually see that on the. There we go. On the BenQ. So we're just a little bit over onto that black. Well, the dark grey invasion stripe. You can probably tell actually on here that it is dark grey rather than black, considering this is black. Compare that with this colour. Now, one big US star. You see, it just wants to stick to the decal. Don't do that. So it needs to come down a little bit because it really wants to be almost touching here and just touching this panel line up at the top, which is where it is. Needs to be a little more square, like so. And we're good. Let's pledge that in. So pledge contains a couple of things, or future, or crystal clear. It's all the same formula. And it's basically used in a lot of paint formulations. It's a plasticizer, and well, it contains a plasticizer and it contains a kind of organic surfactant, which basically softens the decal and helps in making it conform to the surface. And then the kind of polish bits, which I think is an acrylic polish, basically stick it, bind it to the the surface. So it kind of does the job of microsol and microset in one, plus having kind of a finishing agent in it. So it's kind of does 3 jobs all in one, which is why I love it. And I'm just gutted that it's been discontinued. Well, Mike, I don't envy you there. Put tiny little parts into a D3 cockpit. A D3 is not a big aircraft. All right. So we also have, let's see, what all decals do we have? Quite nicely, you see these formation lights here. They are supplied as a decal. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And then whilst we're waiting for that, let's have a look at what else we've got. Quite nicely, there are no other decals to put on the underside of the aircraft at all. We've just got 34, 38, which is the silver piece and the actual national marking itself. And then number 8, which is the formation lights, or whatever they, if they're not formation lights, whatever lights they are. There are all kinds of different lights on aircraft. And if I get the wrong names for them, my apologies. So again, I always try to get the decal kind of in place, slide the rest off. It just makes the positioning so much easier because you're just adjusting rather than trying to slide something around which doesn't really want to move. You know, it can be very fragile. We're going to use our pledge. A little wrinkle in it there. Of course, it moved all over the place when I got the wrinkle out. So that plasticizer compound that I mentioned that's in pledge is not present in things like, what is it, the Holloway's one that people say, oh, this is a great pledge substitute. And people have reported, yeah, it's good, but it's not quite the same. And it's because it doesn't contain these couple of particular, very particular chemicals. And I, for the life of me, don't know why, because it's not like they've been classified, they're not toxic or, you know, like super nasty or anything. I don't know whether they're just a little bit more expensive to produce than perhaps the, you know, whatever's been used as an alternative, as a substitute. I don't know, but the other things don't seem to act in quite the same way. Right, coming to the top of the aircraft. Okay, now we have, oh gosh, there's some more, couple of lights here, which we've got a decal for. We have all of the, what do we call these? Anybody know what you call these lines? The bits that you walk, you know, that define where you can and can't walk on the aircraft. It must have like an official name. And I'm sure it's probably not changed over the years. So if anybody knows what those are, the official names are for those, do let me know in the comments. Mark, yes, I do. So, the best thing to do with Tamiya. Okay, so one particular bugbear of mine, which I'll mention, that you have a sin you've committed here. You have talked about water-based acrylics, which is, there are water-soluble acrylics, water-mixable acrylics, not water-based. I'm actually doing a video on this at the moment, which will come out hopefully fairly soon. I've got another video coming out before that, about all the myths that are around acrylic paints, because there's a whole load of hogwash that people talk about acrylic paints. So I want to get that sorted. People have done videos on it before, but I've not seen one which is as definitive as what I'm going to be doing. Having said that, so Tamiya acrylics, and they are acrylics. They are true acrylics. A lot of people talk a lot of BS about, oh, they're not true acrylics because it's not soluble in water. That's garbage. That's a garbage. So these are about 30% water. A lot of them is butanol, isobutanol, which is an alcohol, which is water soluble as well. It's a polar compound. However, because they have a very high alcohol content, you can use Mr. Hobby leveling thinner. So if you are doing gloss, Mr. Color leveling thinner is a great thing to use. Now, actually, so a lot of people think, oh, this is only for lacquers. It is not. A lot of the components in this are water soluble. Some of them aren't very water soluble, but a lot of them are. Tamiya paints work really well with them. So, for instance, this black that I did before, in fact, both the off-white, which is this ICM acrylic paint, was diluted in Mr. Leveling Thinner, and this Tamiya black was also diluted and also mixed with this. Obviously, you need to test first, because some acrylics will have components which will crash out of solution in something like Mr. Color Leveling Thinner. Now, if you can't get Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, because this stuff tends to be like the proverbial rocking horse droppings, I am actually making some thinner, which is, it's basically exactly the same thing. But obviously it is my own proprietary mixture, which will have to have some small composition differences just from a trademark point of view. But I'll be selling that in the shop. That's actually what I was playing with earlier in terms of the composition. And what that does, so Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, if you mix it with Tamiya paints, like a matte paint, will extend the drying time out to about 25 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. And what that does is it allows the paint to find its own level, to like settle on the surface, which for gloss painters is not so important. I mean, it does make it look nice and smooth. So hopefully you can see these have actually come out very nice and smooth. And that is why he says, trying not to move the decal there. Just put it on, Alex. Come on. So it's really, really nice stuff. And for a gloss paint, that's really important because you want it to dry at a reasonable rate, not too fast, so you don't get patchiness. You want it to dry nice and smooth. It gives that chance for it to level and flatten out and get that nice reflective coat. Of course, you've got to protect it from dust and all of that kind of stuff while it's doing that. So you need a nice area to do it, or you need to put a cover on it while it dries. But leveling thinner is fantastic stuff. But the supplies in the UK are always difficult, which is one of the reasons that I thought, even for the shop, I can't get it for the shop most of the time. I managed to grab one shipment. This is the only one I've got left when I ordered it previously. It's now completely out of stock from the UK importer. So I'm just like, well, I managed to find out what's in it, the proportions of what's in it. It's a mix of basically 5 different organic solvents. of which I have all of them, and I'm just tweaking the percentages of those to give the drying time I want, basically. So there are two versions of Mr. Color Thinner. There is a basic thinner, which again I've got, and that will make it to me a paint dry in about 15 to 20 minutes. And then the leveling thinner, which has a little bit of a change in the composition to basically, it's the same components. It just has a different composition to extend that drying time out. So it reduces the amount of the more volatile components and increases the percentages of the other ones. Yeah, so leveling thinner with Tamiya works with Tamiya, works with enamels, it works with lacquers, it works with outdoor paints and SMS, for instance. So things like Vallejo, and this is why I say you should always check beforehand. It's not the acrylics that are the issue. It's often the other things that they put into the paint. So when I'm doing my video on acrylics, I'm going to talk about, or I do talk about, the history of paint, what paint actually is, and then describe like the different pieces. Because once you understand that, it's really easy to understand acrylics and why, all of these paints here. These are all acrylic paints, right? That one you can just dilute in water. That one you can dilute in water or IPA. This one you can dilute in IPA or lacquer thinners. But they're all acrylics. It's the other things that you put in to modify the properties of that acrylic. It's one of the reasons acrylics are so popular is they are very, very versatile chemically. So you do a lot with them. Now, the other stuff that you put in is often to counteract the effects of some of the pigments. So if you put a pigment in which is, say, very basic or very acidic, it can, change the chemistry of your paint. So you might need to put other stuff in to counteract that, the salts and things. And things like salts, and when I say salts, I'm meaning compounds that interact with stuff to dissolve them in water, essentially. But they don't like organic solvents, so they will crash out of solution. They will precipitate, form gloopy messes. If you've just got organic solvent, they don't have enough water to dissolve in. And other polar solvents often don't have the capacity to solubilize those. Which I understand is a bit heavy on chemistry for what is it, 8:45 on a Thursday evening. But that's the long and the short of it. But leveling thinners especially with glosses, work really, really well. So everything that's been painted here was diluted, where it was diluted, obviously this is just rattle can for speed at the time. But where it has been painted with airbrush diluted, it's all been diluted with leveling thinner, or my version of leveling thinner. The Kraut, thank you very much. Welcome to the membership. Welcome to the club. Make sure you check out the video or Discord message. No, sorry, not Discord message. Membership message. That's kind of a bit weird. But make sure you check out that on YouTube. It gives you the Discord link for my community. And yes, Pavel, you are quite correct. And again, getting the spray wet on the surface of the model. You want it wet, not dripping and running. So there's a point when you're spraying and it's going on the model, and then there's a point where it starts to build up and looks wet. That's the point to stop. Don't keep spraying. You can't spray your way out of a problem. It only gets worse. That's where you get orange peel and all sorts of other horrible things. But once it just looks wet, you just got enough on there, and that's when it will, overall take that, self-leveling. It'll move around to like sort itself out to get that nice overall smooth finish on it. And that's what the leveling thinner gives you the time to be able to do that, or for it to do that. You don't have to obviously have to do anything. Yeah, Guns' distribution is beyond abysmal around the world. A finishing surface of 1500 black is like black gold. It really is. If you've got a stash of 5 jars, now you've admitted that, people will be trying to find you on social media, find your address to raid you. That's more than most shops have, Pavel. No, midweek was not. Midweek was yesterday. We had the midweek model meet. We had Gary and Gary from Gary Stuff and Jamie from Scale Modeling Cafe on. This is just the me pottering about at the Marauder in a little bit less of a time-sensitive manner. I was going to do these individually, but sod it, I'm going to put the whole lot in. We'll sort them out as they come out. There we go. Nice big floppy decal. It sounds rude. Not, I promise you. It sounds it. That's interesting. I think, have I still got some of the coat? You see, I can't tell you whether my paint was some of the P-coded stuff, because I reformat all of my Tamiya paints because I don't have something that takes these bottles. The reason this is still here and the other one is because I stole them from the shop stock. I haven't reformatted them yet. But I got some very old Tamiya paint. And that black is certainly mixed of a number of different pots. The old 23 milliliter pots, I should say, before they went to 10 mil only format. I must admit, I think the 10 mil format is better. I did like the old 23 mil pots, but they did tend to, unless you were using color a lot, once you got down to about a third, they did tend to gum up and, solidify. They weren't really the same paint by the end. Right, so these damn numbers just fragmenting. The reason that this is because they're printed without decal film, so it's just ink. So this is what happens if you just print without. Oh, I see. There's a gap there for the invasion stripes. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Okay, let's see how this goes. This will see whether I've made them the right size or not, won't it? So this one, 41, must be this side. I'm just going to use my fingers just to wet this because it's going to be easier. I'm trying to use a tiny brush. Okay. This could be a disaster. I'm just warning you guys. Right, so it aligns with this panel line. No, that can't be right. I don't know what the hell they're doing here. Okay, so these have not got any allocation for the invasion stripes. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so this is actually going to be this one here. No, don't do that. I must admit, I never like these long decals. Because you've got such a lot of tension, surface tension, or friction, I suppose it really is, on the rest of the decal being on the sheet. No, 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 don't you come with it. Okay, so that goes right across the invasion stripe, which cannot be right. Surely. That seems dumb. I'm just saying. Because you wouldn't put the... Oh my God, Alex, no. Stop. You wouldn't put the decal on and then spray the invasion stripes, would you? I mean, in all seriousness, that would be insane. I mean, you can tell now that these are not black. Okay, that's actually folded over on itself. Okay, I'm not going to lie, guys, this is a pain in the ass. What the? Okay. So this decal is kind of folded over on itself a couple of times. So I'm going to try and smooth it out. Not exactly sure how that happened, but I was faffing with it a bit. I don't know how it turned over in the first place, that's the thing. Okay, that's good, apart from this, which I don't like, because that can't be right. I don't think I've ever seen that in a real picture. Oh, God's sake. Who was talking about swearing and streaming a while ago? Guess you may get to see some more of that tonight. Oh my God, this is just a disaster. So the plan is at the moment, Mark, that I'm going to do 250 and 500 ml bottles. Oh, this just gets worse. I don't even know how it's folded on itself now. So okay, so a lot of the Tamiya paint I have is also still from the mid 1990s, so I'll have to. How do you know a kit which I want, which I have no idea I know I wanted, or there was a kit until I opened the delivery? It's a magic power taggers. Right. I think what I need to do now is let's have a little look. So this is Coral Princess 3. There she is. Unfortunately, I don't have a top view of her like that, but there surely are other Marauders. So let's have a look. B26. Okay. That doesn't really help because this one is absolutely filthy. But it's also super cool. I really want to weather one like this because that looks great. Okay, that one's not really. That's an A26. That looks like it's in War Thunder or something. I'm not seeing big stripes across the wing on these walkway stripes. Okay, that's also a digital one. Not sure what that is. Okay. So this is it is a picture, but that ends at the invasion stripe and then starts again, which is what I would expect because these walkway stencils would have been put in on the factory and then these were applied in the field. So, but it's always worth checking. So I'm going to make the executive decision here. How far do these come back? Right. That goes all the way to there. I'm going to cut this as carefully as I can. I don't want to move the blade because I don't want to cut the plastic. I just want to cut the decal. Does that work? No. That has. So that gets me away from this horrible problem because I can just basically cut that piece off and use the rest of the decal to form that. So let's move this along the panel line, which it does very nicely, I must say. These decals do conform really well. They're nice and thin, but they do have that tendency to. Now this is a panel line, so I can cut through that quite nicely. There we go. Yeah, because they're so thin, they do have a tendency, if you're not careful, like I wasn't, to sort of fold up on themselves. Come on, come on. Come on, don't play silly with me. Obviously, talking to your decals makes them obey you. We all know that. There. And this bastard. Screw you. Okay. So that's how we're going to cope with that. So I refute the fact, Steve, that you're a crappy modeler. We were all, and the video that I'm actually doing at the moment will show you, because it is a bit of an exploration of my journey in modeling. I mentioned this on some of the live streams. I think I mentioned it last night, actually, with Gary and Jamie. So this backing paper seems to dry out quite quickly with ICM decals. So it's actually going to show you some of my models from the 90s and 2000s and show you kind of where I started in my return to modeling. Not my first bit of modeling, which was obviously when I was a kid and was very much, horrible, like kid modeling, glue everywhere. I mean, I remember painting models, that the glue was still wet on, so the glue and the paint would mix together, that kind of thing. But, I was, 6 when I started modeling, something like that. But as I said, kind of in my channel intro video, which I kind of really need to redo. Sorry, I'm just going to, because this is not behaving very well, I'm going to cut it here, and then it's easier to deal with a slightly shorter length. Yeah, as I said in my channel intro, I kind of want the stuff that I do to be realistic in terms of achievability, rather than, I'm not trying to be the next Plasmo or Night Shift, because I think sometimes seeing somebody who is showing you, super amazing builds can be quite intimidating. And sometimes it's inspirational, right? I don't want to take away from those guys that do amazing stuff. But sometimes you just want to see that, something's achievable by anybody, right? This is a hobby for anybody. And you want to know that you're able to achieve the same results. And it's not some magic. It's not the fact that, this person has some special knowledge or tricks or something. So yeah, I make mistakes. I struggle with stuff in the same way that everybody else does, and all modelers do, It's one of the things actually I like about the Night Shift videos where he shows the bloopers, because it shows he is human. He has the same issues. The laws of and rules of modeling still apply to him. A lot of modeling isn't necessarily skill, it's persistence and patience, which are all things you can learn. I am not naturally a very patient person. In fact, I'm quite impatient, especially in matters of business, and where I've been involved in the commercial world. Very impatient. And modeling actually gives me the opportunity to slow down from that natural kind of impatience. It forces me to take my time, be a bit more careful with stuff in order to achieve the results I want. You know, but it's not something you just learn overnight, unless you're already a very natural person, in which case you've got a bit of a head start. So I'm kind of making this up as I go along now. I don't even know which number decals these are. I'm just using whatever long pieces are on there to get these on the model. So far, I would say these are the weakest parts of the model. These walkway decals. Which is saying something, right? Because they're not the worst ones I've encountered. The actual decals themselves are pretty decent, actually. I mean, they're standing up to a fair amount of fiddling about and abuse here. This one doesn't seem to go all the way to the fuselage. Seems to stop just after this, about halfway, like so. And actually, looking at this one doesn't go quite all the way either. So yeah, in the video, I show the oldest model I still have a photo of. In fact, I think it is the oldest model that I did on my return to modeling, a Heinkel HE111 Matchbox kit. And it's horrible. Yep, absolutely, Matt. That's what I've done. I'm not sure there was a single field. I mean, maybe there was. Maybe it's just the marking field. I think it was just a field. Okay, so let's cut that along this panel line. There we go, that went quite well. It's carrier film. You don't see. I'm not too worried about marking these invasion stripes anyway, either, because I am going to distress them, I think, anyway, given that even in the picture that I can provide you here, maybe not so much on this one, but certainly on the ones online of Coral Princess, these are never pristine. And I think Marauders, because they were so hardy, they used to get used a lot, and crews were meant to keep the things running. They weren't necessarily meant to keep them clean. I'm talking about ground crews, obviously. I mentioned this about Spitfires, during the Battle of Britain. If you actually look at some of the period photos of Spitfires, some of them are absolutely ragged because it wasn't their number one priority. You know, surviving was the number one priority. Okay. Once again, I'm going to wet this again. Trying to not get it in my beer. So this decal here is meant to have a piece to stretch over the marking, and I'm not going to deal with that at all. For one thing, unless you've got the decal exactly where ICM have intended you to, which I haven't, I'm about a millimeter off. It's actually going to overlap it, so I'm going to cut it. There we go. But it seems to be the only issue with this kit so far. Okay, there is no invasion, no line all that way. And then there's just the piece, which should be, if I've got everything, if all things being equal, this piece should be the right length. Anybody like to place bets on whether it is? I'm guessing it's not. Yeah, maybe. Kinda. It is going to get cut there, though. I'm not baffling about with all of that clear decal film. Thank you very much. Run a bit of fluff just adhering there. Again, I think the reason you may not have seen these lines on B26s before is just because of the amount of wear, because these, of course, were painted on. And paint comes off over time. You know, operational aircraft, the number one priority wasn't to maintain the paint jobs on the wings for the lines. You know, it was to keep the things flying, keep bombs being dropped on munitions factories and all the rest of it. Right. I think we are approaching the final hurdle with all of this lot, though. That is definitely not the right length. I don't know what that is supposed to be. Although this little bit from here, I think that is probably, we can pick it up, going to give us that extra little bit here. There we go. Yeah, I don't know what that's for. Because it's not long enough for there. This line is long enough for the whole thing. So I don't know what that's supposed to be. I mean, I suppose it goes there if you've got maybe one of the other versions doesn't have the marking on top, so it's to fill that piece in. Don't know. Don't know. Don't care. Okay, let's just leave that on there for the time being. Have a look at the chat. Yeah, that's not a bad shout, actually. They probably would be. Well, so this was when, like, 1996, so, or like 1995. It wasn't necessarily the first kit that I did. Actually, the very first kit I did on my return to modeling was I think a Hawker Typhoon or Tempest. It was actually one that my ex-wife was given by somebody as a joke, I think, and she asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, "Yeah, I used to do models back in the day. I'll give it a go." That's what actually started me back, and I used to buy Matchbox kits from the local shop. They were about £3 back in 1996 from this particular place up in the northeast. I was exceptionally poor at the time, just writing up my thesis, and I did a few of those. They were mainly AFVs, so I did like the Jag Panzer IV that not Airfix, Revell have just re-released under their own brand for a ridiculous amount of money. You know, Humber Scout Car, all of those old kits. And after I'd done it a little bit, I was like, I'd like to make a kind of a more of a go of a kit. And I liked the HE111. It was a kit I hadn't done. So it's just like, yeah, I could do that. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make a really good job of it, which is what I did. And I was quite pleased with the result. And I remember taking it and showing my dad when I was visiting once. And then I went to Scale Model World. And my hopes and dreams of, thinking it was a good model were horribly crushed as I saw what other people were able to create. And I was just like, oh my God, I have no idea how they've even done that, Oh, this is painful. Truly painful. I think you can't be too aggressive with it because otherwise it just folds up on itself. You kind of got to tease it along. Remember what I said about patience a few minutes ago? And even just the tension from this lying on here, the kind of inertia that's supplying is enough to stop this, like, nicely pulling across. There we go. Kind of using that ribbon effect, managed to get that. So let's pull this back. And use the panel line, or the evasion stripe, I should say. Just rock that across and cut it. I should be able to get the end of the decal here. There we go. Pull that along. I'm glad this didn't happen on a 24-hour stream. And when I was at the end of my tether, that would have been bad. Really bad. It's moved. Right, and then let's cut this one. Hallelujah. Oh, I say that, it doesn't come off. There we go. And relax. Never give up, never surrender. Although I must say that wasn't that enjoyable. Right, I'm going to stop poking at it now because otherwise I'm going to make a mistake. And let's just pat them dry. So I just want to take any excess moisture off because I used a lot of water to kind of move them around because you have to. As I say, with ICM decals, they don't like to slide. So one of the great things about cartograph decals in Airfix kits is that they're really easy to use. I mean, they conform well. Sorry, excuse me. You know, they've got all the best properties, and they allow you to manipulate them quite easily. ICM decals have all of those properties except for being able to move them easily. Okay. Get to where you were. So I'm now going to pledge over them to fix them in place. This one has moved, so I just want to get it back to where it was. And as I said, I would probably do this with a larger brush if I had one. Well, I would do it with a larger brush if I had one here, but I don't. But I'm just going to kind of try and follow panel lines where I can. Damn it. A little extra piece I put on. Okay. Stay. I'm concentrating when I'm quiet. I'm just sort of second guess these decals. Okay. Good enough. Good enough. Right, just take a quick break. Have a look at the chat for a second. Yes, indeed, the Blackburn Beverly was saved. They did raise enough money, and they are moving it at the moment, I believe. Yeah, headed off to a museum in Cumberland. Thank you. Right. Okay, that done. What are the next set of decals? Oh yeah, let's do the little lights over here. Let's consign these to the bin and never talk of them again. Damn black lines. I must say, actually, I had the old dogfight double from Airfix of the Spitfire and ME109, and the decals in that for the wing walkways on the Spitfire were also terrible. I had to ditch one in the end. I think they were pre-cartograph, but I'm not sure. Okay, where is that? Ah, it's here. Number 9. Come in, number 9. Your time is up. So just pop up there. Wait for that one. Meanwhile, so we've got the 34, the 38, we've got the 40, 45, 40, 41, just doing number 9. And then I think we've just got, okay, number 32, which is all of the blurb about the aircraft. It goes under the, or by the nose piece. That's that one. It goes just above the Coral Princess piece there. Those. And then we just have, yeah, the side and vertical stabilizer pieces. Stars and bars for that. There's big old triangles. So that's going to be fun. And then we've got the K9R. They're all separate. Lots of nice spares. And these go, red goes to the right. I shouldn't have put that on top of that goddamn stripe. Way too much water there. I presume those are some sort of lights anyway. And I'll just pledge that. Just need a little bit more. Okay. I'm not quite sure where to touch anything now. Where's my little information placard? They drop down here. Okay, I think I can hold it from there. There. Yes. Let's do that one next. Basic goes just here. Kind of this aircraft information. Identifying it as a US Army aircraft. One of the things I'm really impressed with modern decals is, you know, before there'd just be like little squiggles and stuff. You can actually read this. Incredible, really. the detail and the finesse that is present in modern kits. And yet when it comes to some lines, I'm going to bitch and moan about that. Okay. 18 apparently is the left-hand one. I don't know if there is any difference. Are stars and bars handed? I don't think they are. I do think the national markings, once you get them, really starts to make the kit. You know, it starts to bring the whole thing alive. Yes, so this isn't necessarily the way that I normally build models. Building on a stream is a very particular thing. You know, I'm not at my normal modeling desk. I've got way less room than I normally have. But it is what it is, right? It's, just have to go for it. Now, see, I didn't put water down first, and that doesn't want to move. Unfortunately, because it's on the edge there. I just managed to get my brush underneath with the water on, you see, and it straight away will start. Just needs a little bit of encouragement. I don't like the way it has wrinkled at the end here. That's annoying. There we go. That's going to be nice and smooth. Make sure it's not stuck to my thumb. There we go. There's the information on the side there. So I think I've mentioned before that I've been doing a commission of Lotus 49. I've mentioned it several times actually. And I've almost finished that now. I'm just on the last like assembly pieces. It's just bringing the whole pieces together because they're such large sub-assemblies now is a little bit nerve-wracking because there's so much invested in it. You know, I can't get it wrong. And I need to deliver it to Andrew. So stars and bars for just trying to not touch any of the other decals. Whilst I get this side one. Which has pretty good location actually. There we go. It's the old star and bar for the side there. And whenever I'm putting these on, I'm always looking for the, you know, on the instructions, what are the visual cues? You know, where does the end go? The end goes just underneath, not quite halfway on that window. You know, this piece of the bar should be halfway, just a little bit over halfway over this panel line. So just checking those references once I've got it in position to make sure that it is in the right position, that it is sitting in the right place, halfway in those invasion stripes, etc., etc. I have just realized, though, I have made a mistake with those invasion stripes. So if you look on here, the invasion stripes, what I did is I started them. Can you see here? They align here with what looks like the wing root. But I just realized that isn't the wing root, that's the trailing tip of the nacelle. So I've actually done these too wide, and I realized that when I was putting this on, because it doesn't align 100% with my stars and with my invasion stripes. These are a little bit skewed that way. I don't care. I'm not going to change it, but just a pointer for anybody who's thinking of doing this model. Just make sure that you're aligning those. It's only about, what is that? Maybe 10 millimeters, 12 millimeters tops, different. But just one to watch out for. It's not something. I mean, the only way I could correct it now would be to respray those invasion stripes. Not something I'm going to do at this stage. And I don't think it will really be that noticeable. I mean, you guys all know because I just told you, but right, so I'm just doing the K9R for the sides here. And I think what I'll also do is cut this one. So we'll actually do one whole side. And I always think it's the dangerous part of decaling is once you've done one side, do you just leave it? Or do you carry on and do the other side and risk? I ruined more decals, I can tell you, by doing this on, to move the model, forgetting that obviously I've just put the decals here and then I get one stuck in my thumb and then it rips or, is somehow other ruined by my own clumsiness. So usually I am the weakest link in. Do you remember that show with Anne Robinson, The Weakest Link? I'm guessing it's UK only, but it was garbage, wasn't it? It was just basically Anne Robinson being horrible to people. That has, again, I didn't pre-wet, and that has gone down like it's just been super glued into position. So as long as you can get your brush, and this is why I often use a brush with decals, if you can get your brush underneath and get some fluid in, then it just forms a little floatable barrier in there, and then it's usually not a problem. So there's the 9, and let's get the K on. Let's actually remember to put some fluid on before and do the K. The K is quite far over, so it will actually hide the fact that our invasion stripes aren't right, because it looks like it is correct. Otherwise, the K looks like it's too far over. And then the R, again, is quite far back. way back after all of this on the rear fuselage. Whoa, Alex, careful. So I'm just wiping it because some of that bloody little number just came off. And it's fortunately, it's right up against this. There is a couple of panel lines at the back here which meet. And the top of the R goes right into that corner. Decal slightly wrinkled. More pieces of that little number have just actually trapped underneath. That was annoying. I keep moving this about because I keep getting these little pieces of the number telling you which decal it is that's broken up because there's no backing film. That's caused me more trouble than anything on these. Okay, that's better. Got the R. Get the excess water off there. Pat them down, give them a quick pledging. Pledge is also a verb now. Again, normally I'll do this with my flat brush, but I've left it outside because I was doing that lotus. Also, I think it's useful for a stream when you see it, like see a model being done in non-ideal conditions with not necessarily all of the right tools. So it just shows you, you know, like with anything, right? It's just like the right tools can help, they can aid, they can make things easier, but they're not the most important thing. You know, patience, just determination. You know, these are the things that matter more. Right, without touching any of the other decals, there we have K9R. And now I've just got to try and put it on this tail triangle without screwing anything else up. It's quite a big decal. Again, the location of this is actually quite easy. I won't say the position of it is, but the location of it is, because you can see here, the tip of the triangle is right at the top, and it aligns with the center line of the rudder. I'm going to dip that in the water again, just to make sure that the surface is nice and wet. So it actually gives us a really good point to just start with. Slide it off, and then it should be aligned so the 296 is on the main part of the vertical stabilizer, and then two on four is on the rudder. it's just twisted over on the edge. That's annoying. But corrected quite easily. Good. 296, 214. So I usually use a brush as well to smooth out the decal. So hopefully, as I can show you here, see if I can show you on the big camera. So I've smoothed that all out using water. You can see here there's a little lifted piece just at this edge, because underneath that there is a little bump, a little actuator or something. So now that I've actually got it in place and smooth, I'll just pat it dry. Again, this is just to remove the excess water that I've used to move it into position so it's not swimming. And I'm going to use Pledge over the top. I've just mixed Pledge with coffee there, so I'm going to redo that. Not ideal. Remember I mentioned about non-ideal tools? I want to get some underneath into that area as well, because that'll help soften it from underneath. So it doesn't just have to penetrate through, it'll work from underneath and pull it down as well. Oh, damn it, I've just torn the decal there. Idiot. How did I manage that? Oh. Literally just tore the edge of the decal there. Oh well. There's the piece. That's a touch-up job. So you can see, actually just tore the edge of that decal. So fortunately it's just a black, so I'll just leave it. And then when it's dry, if I'm so inclined, I can just go and touch it back up. But let's just try and get some of this out of the way so that I can turn this around and give you guys a bit of a better view of how she's looking. Which is a little bit difficult out there. Let's try and move that a little bit so you can see. So certainly makes a difference, I think, getting the decals on, having the invasion stripes. It gives it a bit more character. But it always amazes me how bloody long decals take. That was 2 hours of just putting decals on. I'm not even finished. I haven't even got these this side on. But I think that's probably enough for this session to actually get this finished. I can do these the other side. You've seen one side, it's going to be exactly the same for this one once these are actually set, so that I don't end up taking them off. And then I'll probably put a wash over this, but again, I'll probably put another session up maybe next Thursday to do that, to show you, how I go about that on this kit. It's exactly the same as I do, for my main stuff. If you guys would like to say that, just put it in the comments, just so I know that it's worth doing. Otherwise, that's all for this evening. Thank you very much for joining me. And it just shows you, and I think we've discussed this before on things like Airfix and Chill, and other streams. Getting the kit built and painted is one part of it, but for me, it's always this stage, decaling onto the end of the kit, which actually it takes a lot more time than you imagine it's going to. Getting that from the kit being built and actually painted, decals on and stuff, it's like there's still quite a lot to do. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Have a fantastic finish to your week on Friday, and just let me know about doing this again next week, showing you those last pieces. Given that, I will probably also do things like repainting these surfaces, given that there's no time constraints, which is what I would normally do, because to show the difference between metal and the sprayed fabric, just to give that difference in tonality. I'm not going to go and do all the stuff that I would normally do on natural metal, because obviously that would require a lot more, and we're past that point now. But anyway, I'm going to stop rabbiting now. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again probably on Airfix and Chill. And yeah, look out for the video on my past mistakes when it comes out sometime over the weekend. Okay, guys, thanks very much. Bye.